Well, hello and welcome back. Weather today is not very good in Cyprus. If you want to have a quick look at it, a little bit of rain, there's froth, not that much blueness out there either. But of course we do need the rain because of course the rain will fill the reservoirs, and that means we can wash, and that means we can fill the swimming pools. It means that we can wash the cars, have drinking water and all these kind of things. But anyway, to the title of the video. Buying a property in Cyprus. Is it difficult to buy a property in Cyprus? No, it's not difficult to buy a property in Cyprus. It's just like anywhere else in the world. You follow the procedures. Obviously, first of all, you've got to find the property you want to buy, but then you follow the procedures and pays your money and you end up owning the property. But like anywhere else in the world, there's always a but, isn't there? You've got to do due diligence. You've got to make sure that you instruct an independent lawyer. Now, again, many people might say I'm wrong, they might criticize me, but I would say that you should always have an independent lawyer. So not a lawyer that is recommended by the estate agent, the property seller, not a lawyer that is recommended by the developer if you're buying a new build property, not a lawyer recommended by the person that you're buying the property off, shall we say. And I think that would make common sense to most people. I understand some people will disagree with me, but at least then you would believe anyway that the lawyer, the solicitor, is working on your behalf. Obviously you're paying him or her to do it. So that would be the first piece of advice. But before you even get to the lawyer stage, obviously you've got to find the property that you want to buy. And it even gets more difficult than that, doesn't it? And a lot of people saying, what is he on about? Because first of all, you've got to decide what type of property you want to buy. So you could be buying a property for investment, a property you're going to short-term rent or long-term rent. Now again, short-term renting a property and long-term renting a property, if you've bought it, you want the maximum return for your money that you can possibly get. So I'll say that again. If you're looking to buy a property to short-term rent, should we say Airbnb, most people understand that, or you're looking for a property to long-term rent, they're probably not quite the same. And that doesn't mean that you can't Airbnb 1 year and then next year decide to go to a long-term rent on whatever property. Of course you can. But what I'm saying is, if you are buying it as an investment, which a lot of people are when we're talking about Cyprus, or shall we say they're buying it today, and let's say they're in their 40s, in their 50s, and the idea is in 10 or 15 years time to come and live in Cyprus, and then of course they're going to live in that property. Could be an apartment, could be a villa, could be whatever it is. So that probably is their goal, shall we say. So Airbnb that, let's say, apartment probably has the highest potential if it's in and around Relocatetopaphos harbour promenade area, and then set back a little bit into the universal area to Lower Yerskipu, and then we're coming round to the Mall, maybe to the rear of the Mall, and then of course back round to Tomb of the Kings and Lower Clorica. So those are, in my opinion, and most people would agree, the prime locations if you want to do a short-term Airbnb investment property. And probably the best property is a one-bedroom apartment. People may disagree with me, but think about that. People are going to come out on holiday, or that's your market anyway, and there'll be 2 people or possibly 4 people. Well, a one-bedroom apartment sleeps 4 people, 2 in the bedroom, and of course sofa bed, etc. in the lounge area. Remember, they're only on holiday. Most of the time they'll be out and about, perhaps on a beach, perhaps in a restaurant. So a one-bedroom apartment is what that clientele is looking for. Now, if your budget stretches enough, it might be wise to buy a 2-bedroom apartment, because of course 10, 15 years down the line, when you now decide to reside in Cyprus and live in that property, obviously it will be beneficial to you to have bought a 2-bedroom apartment. So this is the dilemma, isn't it? But of course it all comes down to cost. a lot of people may buy a 1-bedroom apartment today, long-term rent it for 15 years or short-term rent it for 15 years, then sell it and then buy the bigger property when they come to Cyprus. So there's lots of different solutions to the problem, is what I'm saying. Now, that was short-term, wasn't it? Long-term renting, so your plan now is to buy a property, long-term rent it for 5, 10, 15, maybe more years before you come to Cyprus. And what your plan is now is to, should we say, not be buying a smaller place and then flipping it to buy a bigger place. So you start off with a 2-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom bungalow or a 2-bedroom villa, 3-bedroom villa, okay? So now that property could be, in my opinion, a lot further away from the main touristy area, because of course if someone's going to long-term rent it, they're not a tourist. They are people who are going to retire to Cyprus, people who are perhaps in Cyprus to work for a year or 2 years or maybe many more years, or the local market that of course live here permanently but need somewhere to rent. So those are the two scenarios when you come to buying a property as an investment to rent out, whether it be on a short-term basis or a long-term basis, with the long-term goal of you living in that property. Okay, so that's one little part of buying a property in Cyprus, if you understand me. Now, I know a lot of people will want me to talk about title deeds. Oh my God, title deeds. That can of worms, if you've been on the internet, but it's not just in Cyprus, it's in every country in the world. You know, if you're watching from the UK, which primarily people are, would you buy a property which didn't have its deeds? No, you wouldn't. So why would you buy a property in another country that didn't have its deeds? Now, I understand that perhaps it wasn't explained to you, or shall we say, you misunderstood. This is how many of those cases happen. And I understand many of those cases happen through pure deception. So let's talk about title deeds. What does it mean? And what's the difference in title deeds? Okay, so we have to go back a little bit and we have to explain the property market in Cyprus. So every country in the world will have different terminologies for the ownership document of the property. In Cyprus it's called a title deed. In the UK it's called deeds. Perhaps in Germany it's called something else. But the word deed normally will be in there. So what it means is that you have the ownership of the asset, of the property that you've purchased. So, like I say, we've got to go back a little bit for you to understand now the property market. So what you've got is new build properties and properties that already exist. Now, in Cypriot terminology, the words you will hear are new build properties or properties from a developer, so brand new built, or maybe not even existing properties, which are of the developer. And again, that would be off plan. So new build, off plan is directly from a developer, a contractor that's built the properties, or resale properties. So the word resale refers to a property that already exists and it's been built 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, and is highly likely that it has its title deed. Okay, so, but we'll come back to that in a minute. So you've got to understand the difference in the properties. So if you are on a website searching, so you're searching for properties, in the search bar, isn't it, you can choose 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and then you will see, you know, rent a property, buy a property. So you select buy a property, and then it will show you normally 2 options of new build properties and resale properties. So resale properties are properties that were built certainly 5 or 6 or 10 years ago, and new build properties are either being built literally as you look at the website, or perhaps are in conception, so off plan. Okay, so those are 2 important differences, and you'll understand in a minute why I've talked about that. So, title deeds. You cannot be issued your title deed on a brand new build property or a property that's a project that's going to take off. because it doesn't exist. And if you apply logic to that, well, of course it doesn't exist. So you can't have a title deed issued on that property. What happens is you agree to purchase the property, you have a sales contract, and then you and your solicitor, your lawyer, must ensure that that contract is logged at the land registry department. And that means that in a period of time, once all the properties on that particular resort, that development, are sold, the developer will hand over, shall we say, all of the deed to the land registry, and the land registry will carve it up, and each individual will be issued with their title deed for their part of that development. Okay, it's as simple as that. But you can't have it straight away. And normally, if you hunt around on the internet, ask this question, the deeds will be issued sometime between 3 and about 7 years. Okay. Now, does that give complexity to if you wish to sell that property after 3 or 4 years? Well, no, because of course the title deeds are in the process of being issued. So you don't have the title deed, but the new buyer would then eventually receive the title deed. So there's not much to worry about in there. Now, this is where the problems come. When we go to existing properties, so properties that were built 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, okay, and you go to view it, you like it, and off goes your lawyer, off goes your solicitor, starts doing the search, and then it comes back that there's no title deed for the land, there's no title deed for the property. Now, does that mean that the person doesn't own it? Not necessarily, because that person may have proof that he purchased the land, proof of all the bills and things of building the property, but of course it was never ever registered at the land registry. And this is where the problems start. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't go and see those properties, and I'm not saying you shouldn't consider to buy those properties. I'm just saying that probably you shouldn't, but that's your choice, okay? I wouldn't, should we say. And that would apply anywhere in the world, not just in Cyprus. I'm trying to dispel this myth, because there are many, many, many good people in Cyprus, many, many good developers who've been going for a long, long time indeed. And they come in for an awful lot of stick from the odd entity that finds out they're in a situation of having no title deeds. And then, of course, lawyers and solicitors will get on their side and try and tar the whole market with this myth. But remember, it's on their side because they're making money out of it. So be aware, and if ever you come across that, if you're purchasing a property, just walk away. Next. Don't fall in love with the property, okay? And this is another problem with buying a property, isn't it? You've got to understand, like I said at the start of the video, what you want from the property. Okay, now if it's for your forever home, people now fall in love with a style of a property, a location of a property. But probably, if you are coming to Cyprus to buy an apartment, it's probably going to be, at the start of the video, to Airbnb, short term or long term. So, you know, you've got to detract yourself from it and see it as what it is, a way for you to earn some money, to pay back the money that you paid for the property. Hopefully the property accrues in value. Then you may live in it, you may sell it and recoup your capital. Okay, so back to it. So back to resale properties, isn't it? Now, scenario number one was there was no title deed for the land, there was no title deed for the property on the land. Most people would say, run a mile, okay? Next scenario, there is a title deed for the land, but it doesn't list the property as existing on the land. Is that good? Is that bad? Well, it's a lot better than the other scenario because, of course, there is proof that the land is registered. So if you buy it, you would have ownership of that land. And, you know, maybe with a little bit of luck and a little bit of help from lawyers, you could retroactively have the property shown to exist. Up to you. Risky. But, of course, that probably would be reflected in the price, shall we say. The next scenario, on the same piece of land, on the same property is, and it was built 20, 30 years ago,
There is a clear title deed on the land and a clear title deed to the property that's on the land. And there's no incumbents, there's no mortgages, etc., etc. Anything wrong with it? No. There we go. So you can purchase that property knowing full well that the land and the property are in your name. Obviously, if you want to make improvements to it, you would be required, isn't it, to take out the correct applications, planning applications, etc., etc. And of course, then they would be registered onto the new title deed, etc., etc. So hopefully it's explained a little bit. Hopefully. It's a minefield out there, not just in Cyprus. You know, this applies anywhere in the world, and anyone who says it doesn't, they're wrong, because there are properties everywhere in the world that come with problems, always to do with the registering of the land, the registering of the build. The property on the land is 12 bedrooms now, and it should have only been 3 bedrooms. You understand what I'm saying? The property is in 2 different people's names, and one person's going to sell you their share, but the other one isn't. To be honest, anyone who gets involved in any of these deals anywhere in the world, well, perhaps they should go and see a psychiatrist. That's where I'm going to go next, by the way, because I've got problems, obviously. Anyway, there we go. So hopefully that's cleared it up. And if you need help, advice, we can hook up with you. We can connect you to the correct people who will help you, from lawyers, solicitors, sales agents, rental agents, property developers, all reputable people who obviously want to make money, but they will do it in the correct way. And it's always a difficult one we talk about money, isn't it? Everyone is doing something for money. You know, no developer is going to give you an apartment, give you a villa for no money. But most developers everywhere in the world are reputable and honest. They are flexible, shall we say, a little bit on the price, flexible on changing something. They want to do the best for you, but of course, at the end of the day, they want your money. Same with the lawyers, same with the solicitors. Just make sure that you feel comfortable with them. And if you do, I'm pretty sure the whole process will go very, very smoothly. If you want to reach out to us, marikaandme.com, that's the website, or email us at relocatetopaphos@gmail.com. Alternatively, relocatetocyprus@gmail.com. WhatsApp number in the description. Drop us a message. And if you want to schedule a video call where you can ask the questions that you want to ask, and I can ask the questions that I need to ask. I'm going to look forward to your company again very, very soon indeed. Hopefully you'll keep coming back. And we're going to dismount just so you can see what the weather's like. Let's go and have a look. There we are. It's not bad, by the way. Bit of a puddle, as you can see, and a bit mucky, but overall, not a bad day. And to be honest, the sun is starting to come out as well. Island of Love. And don't forget, talking about the words Island of Love, on Valentine's Day, which of course is tomorrow, we've got a little special release coming out at 12 noon UK time, 2 o'clock Cyprus time, and that's the theme song, and it's called The Island of Love. And of course it's been composed by the Marika and Me team. We like it. There was a comment from a gentleman not long ago to say that it was amazing. So hopefully you'll tune in to tomorrow's extra little video and sing along to The Island of Love. Huge thanks for watching. I'll see you again very, very soon indeed.